The hall was a cathedral of whispers, its oak-paneled walls soaking up the tension like a sponge. A hush fell as a figure stepped to the podium, the faint rustle of papers the only sound in a room thick with anticipation. Who were these people? Lawmakers in crisp suits, teenagers with fire in their eyes, a mother clutching a worn notebook as if it held her last shred of hope. And why had they gathered here, under the watchful gaze of history, with the First Lady herself seated among them? This wasn't just a meeting. It was a reckoning. A collision of pain, power, and a promise to rewrite the rules of a digital world gone feral. Something monumental was about to happen, and every soul in that room knew it. Senator Ted Cruz's voice broke the stillness, warm but commanding. "Thank you, everybody, for being here," he said, his Texas drawl threading through the crowd. "And I want to start by thanking the First Lady, Melania Trump, for joining us today." Melania sat near the podium, her elegant frame draped in a cream suit, her expression calm yet piercing. She wasn't just a figurehead here. Her presence carried weight. For years, her Be Best initiative had championed children's well-being, and now she'd lent her voice to the Take It Down Act, a bipartisan bill aimed at shielding the vulnerable from the predatory shadows of the digital age. The Senate had passed it unanimously 3 weeks earlier, and the House was next. This wasn't just a policy debate. It was a lifeline for thousands. Ellison shifted in her seat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. At 15, she was the youngest speaker today, but her story had sparked this movement. Just over a year ago, on October 2nd, 2023, her world had shattered. She'd woken up to a barrage of messages from a friend. "Ellison, you need to see this." Her heart sank as she opened the links. There, on Snapchat, were nude images of her face crudely grafted onto a stranger's body using AI. She'd been 14, a freshman in Alo, Texas, when a classmate turned an innocent Instagram photo, a snapshot of her laughing at a school picnic, into a weapon. "Fear, shock, disgust," she later wrote in her journal, "and this awful feeling that it was my fault." Her mother, Anna, had been her rock. Anna spent weeks calling Snapchat, emailing support teams, begging them to take the images down. Nothing. "It's like screaming into a void," Anna had said, her voice raw with frustration. Ellison stopped going to school for days, terrified that every whisper in the halls was about her. It wasn't until Senator Cruz's office got involved, after Anna stormed into his local office, tears streaking her face, that the images came down. Within 2 hours of Cruz's staff calling Snapchat's CEO, the nightmare was scrubbed from the platform. It shouldn't take a senator, Ellison thought bitterly. That's when she decided she wouldn't let this happen to anyone else. Across the room, Franchesca Mani sat with her arms crossed, her dark hair pulled into a tight ponytail. At 14, she'd faced the same horror in Westfield, New Jersey, just weeks after Ellison's ordeal. Her classmates had used AI to create deepfake porn of her and a dozen other girls, passing the images around like a sick game. The school's response infuriated her. The girls' names were announced over the intercom, a public shaming, while the boys were quietly pulled aside. "One got a 1-day suspension," Franchesca said later, her voice sharp with disbelief. "They're still on the soccer team, acting like nothing happened." Her mother's lawyer had drafted a new school policy in a week, but the administration dragged its feet for a year, claiming their hands were tied until the rules caught up with AI. Franchesca wasn't waiting. She'd testified at a Dallas field hearing with Senator Cruz, appeared on 60 Minutes, and even earned a spot on Time's list of influential people in AI. Schools need to act, she told herself, not just react. Today, she'd tell the world. Breeze Lou, 24, sat a few seats away, her posture straight, but her eyes distant. Her story began 5 years earlier, in April 2020, with a phone call that still echoed in her nightmares. "Breeze, there's a video of you on Pornhub," her friend had stammered. She'd clicked the link, expecting a mistake, only to see her face on a pornographic video she'd never made. The humiliation was instant, a tidal wave that drowned her dignity. "I felt dehumanized," she said quietly, twisting a ring on her finger. The video spread to hundreds of sites, and no one, not the police, not the platforms, could stop it. She'd nearly lost herself to the despair, but instead, she'd fought back. Now she led Electo AI, a company crafting tools to combat digital abuse. The tech that hurt us can heal us, she believed. Today was her chance to prove it. Brandon Guffey's story was the hardest to hear. A South Carolina state representative, he stood tall but broken, his grief etched into every line of his face. On July 27, 2022, his oldest son, Gavin, had taken his life after a sextortion scam. It was an hour and 40 minutes, Brandon said, his voice cracking. Someone pretending to be a college girl tricked him into sending photos, then demanded money. When he couldn't pay, they pushed him over the edge. Gavin was gone before Brandon even knew what was happening. The predator's account was shut down after Homeland Security intervened, but others linked to it stayed active, targeting Brandon's 14-year-old cousin, his 16-year-old son, even him. They sent me a message. "Did I tell you your son begged for his life?" Brandon's hands shook as he recounted it. He'd passed Gavin's Law in South Carolina, convicting one predator using an AI-generated image, but the fight was far from over. "Big tech's the new big tobacco," he said. "They profit while our kids die." Stefan Turkheimer, from Rain, brought cold, hard data to the table. As vice president of the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, he'd seen the crisis explode. "Kids are flooding our hotline," he explained, his voice steady but urgent. "During the pandemic, over half our online callers were minors. We thought it'd drop after, but it's doubled every month since 2019. Image-based sexual abuse, real or fake, isn't just a side effect of in-person assault anymore. It's a standalone epidemic." He paused, letting the weight sink in. "These kids relive their trauma every time an image resurfaces. We need to stop it." The Take It Down Act was their answer. It was simple but seismic. Sharing non-consensual intimate images, real or AI-generated, would become a felony. Tech giants would have 48 hours to remove them after a victim's request. No excuses. "Every American deserves this right," Cruz had insisted, not just the rich and famous. The Senate's unanimous vote 3 weeks ago had lit a spark. Now the House was under the spotlight. Melania Trump rose to speak, her voice soft but resonant. "Good afternoon," she began, adjusting the microphone. "I'm here with you today for a common goal, to protect our youth from online harm." She spoke of Ellison, Franchesca, and the millions of unseen victims, her words weaving a tapestry of empathy and urgency. In today's AI-driven world, the threat to privacy is alarmingly high. We must prioritize robust security and ethical standards. Every young person deserves a safe online space. Her Be Best legacy wasn't just a slogan. It was a call to action, and this bill was its beating heart. The room swelled with voices. Speaker Mike Johnson pledged to fast-track the bill. "The law has to keep up with the dark side of technology," he said, clapping a hand on Cruz's shoulder. Majority Leader Steve Scalise recalled his days fighting video voyeurism in Louisiana, drawing parallels to today's AI abuse. "We made it a crime then," he said. "We'll do it again now." Representatives Salazar, McClain, Hearn, Guthrie, and Khanna, Republicans and Democrats alike, echoed the call, their bipartisan unity a rare beacon in a divided Congress. Ellison stood to share her story, her voice trembling at first but growing stronger. "I was 14 when my innocence was stripped away," she said, meeting Melania's gaze. "I lived in fear those photos would resurface. It wasn't until Senator Cruz stepped in that they came down. We need this bill to give every victim a voice." Franchesca followed, her anger palpable. "Schools need to expel these boys, not suspend them for a day," she demanded. "We need laws that shift power back to us." Breeze's words were a quiet fire. "America doesn't accept impossible," she said, invoking the moon landing. "We have the tech to fix this. Now we need the will." Brandon's plea was raw. "I lost my son because he had no recourse. This bill gives families a fighting chance." Stefan tied it together. "The trauma doesn't end until the images do," This bill says, in 48 hours, it's over. As the hour ticked to 59 minutes, Cruz closed with gratitude. Madam First Lady, your leadership is producing real action, he said. To our advocates, you're extraordinary. To the House, we'll get this done. The room erupted in applause, a wave of hope washing over the pain. Ellison looked at Franchesca, Breeze, and Brandon, strangers turned warriors. She pictured a future where no teen woke to her nightmare, where no parent buried a child like Gavin. The Take It Down Act wasn't just ink on paper. It was a promise carved from their courage. As Melania's words lingered, a powerful step toward justice, healing, and unity, Ellison felt it. The dawn was breaking. They'd fight until it shone for everyone. Thank you for watching till the end video. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends too. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories.